I've professionally tested outdoor gear for 15 years for publications like Backpacker, Outside, CNN, and the Wall Street Journal. And after testing hundreds of backpacking products, there are a few expensive pieces of gear I'd absolutely spend my own money on again, and a few that I think are overrated, including one that I know the ultralighters are going to come at me for. Let's dive in. First up, let's talk about the Sea to Summit Spark 15 women's sleeping bag. This thing costs about $550, which honestly hurts my soul a lot. But it is one of the few expensive backpacking products that immediately made sense to me the second I started using it. It uses 850 fill goose down, weighs just about 2 pounds, and it packs down to the size of a small watermelon. And when you're backpacking and trying to save space and weight, that stuff really matters. But honestly, none of that would matter if it didn't actually keep me warm. And the Spark does. I sleep incredibly cold. Like, I'm the person at camp wearing every layer I own and always carrying a hot Nalgene around with me type cold. But I took this sleeping bag on the Santa Cruz trek earlier in this month in Peru. We were sleeping above 13,000 feet and the nights were seriously cold. Other people in our group were complaining about freezing overnight. And meanwhile, I was totally cozy in the sleeping bag. So, yes, it's pricey, but yes, it's worth it. Next up, we have one that isn't worth it, Dyneema. I know ultralight people are probably grabbing their pitchforks and their keyboards ready to come at me for this, but hold on. For those of you who don't know, Dyneema is an insanely lightweight, impeccable, and strong fabric. It's objectively impressive and it packs down to really, really small too. You'll see it on a lot of boutique ultralight backpacking brands, and it's been around for a minute. When I first started testing this stuff over a decade ago, we were calling it Cuben Fiber, and people absolutely lost their minds over it. But honestly, I'm not still fully convinced it's worth the absurd price tag for most backpackers. And here's why: it doesn't handle abrasion all that well. Over the years of testing it, I've noticed wear showing up on abrasion heavy areas way faster than I expected, considering how expensive this stuff is, because we're talking hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And I think for a lot of backpackers, Dyneema has become a little bit more of a flex than an actual necessity. If you love it, amazing. Let Dyneema be your personality. But I have a hard time justifying the cost for most backpackers. Next up, we have one that is totally worth the money, the NEMO Persist Endless Promise Backpack. I'll tell you what, I love Nemo. One thing about Nemo is that they're not always going to be the loudest brand in the outdoor space, but they care deeply about details and thoughtful design, and it shows. This bag is insanely durable. If you're bushwhacking or scrambling or doing some of those rougher off trail adventures where your gear takes a beating, this backpack is going to hold up incredibly well. And it's also a really versatile size, especially for the 30 liter. It's great for like an overnight trip, but also really good for a burly day hike. But honestly, the biggest reason I think that this pack is worth the money is because of Nemo's Endless Promise program. The Persist is part of their Endless Promise collection, which is a series of gear designed to be fully recyclable at the end of its life. So one day when the pack finally gives out and it's completely done, you literally just mail it back to Nemo. They send you a small gift card and thanks, and then they turn the entire product into a new piece of gear instead of sending it to the landfill. And considering how much outdoor gear eventually becomes trash and is filling our landfills currently, I honestly think that's pretty incredible. It makes this totally worth the extra spend. Okay, we're back with another one that is not worth your money for backpacking, and that is the Teva Ember Mocs. Before I make you mad, let me tell you this. I love these stupid shoes, even though they're $100 camp shoes. These are probably one of the most popular camp shoes out there, and honestly, I get it. They're cozy, they're comfortable, they're easy to slip on around camp, they have the hard soles, they are great for car camping. But for backpacking, absolutely not. These things are shockingly heavy and they don't pack down well at all because they don't fold up. So they become this bulky albatross that dangles off your backpack or takes up a ton of space inside. So while I genuinely love these for car camping, I personally don't think they are worth the money if you're buying them for a backpacking trip. Next up on the totally worth the money list is the Rab Mythic G down jacket. This is an absurdly bougie backpacking jacket at $550. Yowza. I know it, but I love it. And honestly, I have never tested another jacket with the level of warmth to weight ratio that this jacket has. Sure, there are larger puffies out there that are warmer, but they're huge and heavy and impossible to pack for a backpacking trip. Meanwhile, this thing weighs next to nothing, packs down to the size of a small cantaloupe, and somehow it is still insanely warm. The secret is because it combines 800 fill power down insulation with this really cool reflective lining on the inside that helps trap your body heat and use it back to insulate you. So it honestly kind of feels like outdoor wizardry. I bring this jacket on basically every backpacking trip now, including my recent trip on the Santa Cruz trek, and I never regret carrying it. Totally worth the money. Next up is a product that totally drove me insane, the La Sportiva Prodigio Pro trail runners. These trail runners are frustrating because I actually really like these shoes, both for running and for hiking. I often backpack in trail running shoes, so I had high hopes for these. But they have the loudest squeak with every single step on both shoes. And at first, I genuinely thought I was losing my mind, like I was hearing things. But then I found a Reddit thread where people were describing the exact same issue. And I haven't seen it in any other online reviews. So I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if the insole is rubbing against the midsole or if the midsole foam itself is really squeaky. But once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And for a shoe that costs $185, I just can't recommend them because of that. Squeak, 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 squeak. And now we have my last but not least on the list of expensive items that I would still recommend. My favorite luxury backpacking item of all time, down puffy pants, specifically the Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer pants. I am usually the only person at camp wearing puffy pants. And honestly, at this point in life, I don't care one bit because they are amazing and worth all $300. I've had these things for like 6 or 7 years and they have changed my backpacking life. They packed out super small, they weigh very little, and they completely transform camp comfort. I pair them with the Rab Mythic G down puffy, and suddenly I'm basically wearing an entire sleeping bag around camp. And honestly, it's the coziest thing ever. If it gets really cold overnight, I'll even sleep in them, which makes me the most comfortable human on the side of the mountain. These are absolutely a luxury item, but they are one of those pieces of gear that sounds ridiculous. I mean, puffy pants, but then you use them and you will never go back. So there we have it. Yes, some expensive backpacking gear is absolutely overpriced hype, but some of it genuinely improves your experience enough that it's worth every penny. Because if you're having fun, you will go more often. But I'd love to hear from you. What would you add to this list? Drop it in the comments below so we can all debate how to spend our hard earned cash. Until next time.